Drive capped by this.
Nix goes under center. Irving is the deep back. Everybody else tight to the formation. They fake the handoff to Irving, fake an end around. Nix in trouble back at the 10, throws to the end zone in the middle, and that ball is caught. Touchdown, the tight end, Terrence Ferguson.
His 43rd scoring strike of the season. That's a single-season school record for Nix. He tacked on one more with 3 seconds to go to Trayshawn Holden. 4 scoring strikes in the first half. 31-6 Oregon up top as they had dominated through 2 quarters. College football on ESPN Radio has been presented by Wendy's. Order a Wendy's Biggie Bag today because if there's one thing you can bet on, it is Biggie. Coming up next on College Football Live Halftime Report, the second half from Glendale. Can Liberty fight back? This is the Verbo Fiesta Bowl on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Hey, Brent, love the color. If you had to choose, would you watch paint dry or compare benefits plans?
Compare benefits plans, obviously.
But you know how complicated benefits are, right?
Well, I run payroll with Gusto. Gusto makes it easy to find benefits like medical, dental, and vision for my whole team.
Whoa. Oh, sorry. I'm gonna need new glasses.
Don't worry, you're covered.
Choose benefits without the mess. Visit gusto.com/radio to sign up for free.
Texting enrolls you in a recurring automated marketing text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
The team's looking good this season.
I think so. Man, I miss playing football. Being young with unlimited energy to burn. Ever since I turned 40, I just can't find that fire I used to have.
Think you could be lower testosterone?
What do you mean?
All guys lose their edge when they turn 40. The body has less testosterone. That's why I take Nugenix Total T.
I've heard about Nugenix. That really works?
Since I started taking Nugenix, I'm lifting like when we played for Coach Carter. I feel more energized at work. It's even spiced up things between me and the missus.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles for people to try?
Yep, send a text. It's that easy.
Text STAY to 42424 right now for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T. It's the #1 selling testosterone boosting brand at GNC and Walmart. Do it now and they'll also send you a bottle of Nugenix Thermo X, their newest, most powerful fat burner ever, absolutely free. Text STAY to 42424. That's STAY to 42424.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-575-6759. Don't lose hope. TRA can eliminate or reduce what you owe to the IRS. There is zero risk to you. If we can't reduce your tax debt, then you pay nothing. Our passion is taxes and helping individuals fix their IRS problems. We have a 5-star rating on Google and Yelp and an A+ with the Better Business Bureau. You don't need to be afraid of the IRS any longer. End your tax nightmare today by visiting us online at TRA.com or call 800-575-6759. That's 800-575-6759. Tax Relief Advocates. Real solutions for real people.
Welcome back. All right, Jimmy, our Army veteran, for $400. Are you ready to answer the next question?
Actually, I'm good.
Huh?
Well, I already earn and save $473 a year on average with Navy Federal Credit Union. So, yeah.
All members of the Armed Forces, all veterans, and their families can earn and save more every year with a Navy Federal membership. Navy Federal Credit Union. Our members are the mission. Insured by NCUA. Dollar value based on the 2022 Navy Federal Member Giveback Study.
This is the Verbo Fiesta Bowl on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
Jim Basketball back in the College Football Live Halftime Report. We are brought to you by Wendy's. And now pause 10 seconds for station identification. You're listening to the Verbo Fiesta Bowl on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
WOKV Jacksonville. Listen live everywhere you go on ESPN690.com. ESPN 690. Jacksonville's home for ESPN Radio.
A full reaction to the Magic of Bowl season. Evan Cohen, Chris Canty, Michelle Smallman on Unsportsmanlike, weekdays 6 to 10 a.m. Eastern. It's followed by Greeny until noon right here on ESPN Radio. Bo Nix, 4 scoring strikes in the second quarter alone as Oregon takes a 31-6 lead into the second half. We go back to Glendale with Stormy, Max, and Mike.
Jim, that was only the second time this season that an FBS quarterback had 4 passing touchdowns in a quarter. The other quarterback to do it was Michael Penix of the University of Washington. And we'll see the Huskies later on tonight in the Sugar Bowl against Texas. Be curious to know what Jamie Chadwell thought of that first half, and it's a good thing Stormy Bonantoni just caught up with the Liberty head coach.
Yeah, and I said to him, Coach, you haven't experienced much, if any, failure this year. You haven't seen a scoreboard like this. How do you manage that feeling in the locker room? And he said what was most disappointing about watching that first half unfold was that we know that Oregon's really good. They can beat anybody. That's no surprise. But we don't know if we're good enough because we're not doing anything we normally do. He said we're dropping easy passes. We're having these ridiculous penalties. It's not necessarily them imposing their will on us as much as it is we're just not being who we should be. Got to get back to being ourselves if we want any chance of at least playing a respectable game here. So I appreciate
WOKV Jacksonville. Listen live everywhere you go on ESPN690.com. ESPN 690. Jacksonville's home for ESPN Radio.
ESPN 690 and Action Sports Shacks presents Brent and Friends.
Today is one of the worst days that I've had in a long time.
We're getting a little punchy around here, people. It's been a lot in a row.
I would love to punch you guys.
Ow! Ow! It really hit me.
Brent and Friends with Brent Martineau, Aaron Schachter, and Kasey Kuhrts. Jacksonville's home for ESPN Radio. ESPN 690.
Hey, it's become a tradition. We work on New Year's Day.
I kind of like it now.
Do you?
No, not at all. I'm tired.
Hate being here?
I'm tired. I want to be home, laying on the couch.
You guys both look like you came off one heck of a banger. Time you just get in?
It's tough, man. It's tough being old.
What's Casey's problem then?
That's a question for the ages.
It's a little cold.
Yeah. I was up at the ball drop. I just didn't watch. I was watching a show on HBO. So. That's what it's come
where
to.
You're at?
Yeah. I went to sleep at like 1:30, had nothing to do at New Year's. Could have been Thursday night last week, and it would have been 1:30. It's just.
We were watching the Nashville one because you can't, we have DirecTV, and so you can't get the other stations.
Ah, okay.
And I don't even know which one we would have watched. It's not like it's a tradition.
Yeah.
But there you go. I saw somebody today tweet or share a tweet like, this New Year's Day is celebrated over a 24-hour period by different people at different times.
Yeah.
Right? He said there's nothing astrological about this day.
Nothing.
Like it just is celebrated. I was like, and I think the end was like, it doesn't matter. Just thought you should know. I was like, okay, good.
Good to know.
That's cool. That's good to know.
Good info.
Here's what you should know. Jags got the win.
Big time.
The big win. Big win.
Big win.
Hey, they took care of business, right? That's what the Jaguars needed to do.
Yeah.
A little bit. You don't get a get-right game in the NFL very often. This is about as a get-right game as you could get.
Yeah. I'm not on board with the dominant performance that I saw you and all your brethren putting out there.
You didn't like that?
Nah.
I mean, it was a dominant performance.
I mean, technically, the other team didn't score. That's pretty dominant.
It's pretty dominant.
But, like anybody else in the league besides the Panthers, and then I would have been like, all right, maybe we're seeing something cook here.
Yeah, that's fine.
Momentum is good, though. It's good to get a big win going into a game where you really, really need the win.
Yeah, listen, the bottom line is all that's fine, and I think people get what it is. I don't think they said, wow, now the Jags are going to the Super Bowl. They just beat Carolina 26-0.
Yeah.
But I think when you put it in the context of really some of the things we've been throwing out there really for the last week, went into last week kind of saying, hey, the Jags were playing teams over this 4-game losing streak that are 14-2 in this stretch. Like, they are hot. Yeah. The Jags are not hot, not playing their best football, and also beat up. They got beat up starting in that losing streak in like the first 5 plays against Cincinnati.
Yeah.
They lost Herndon and Kirk, I think, on like just a matter of plays.
And continued to play yesterday, beat up.
And yeah, but they're also getting healthier. And then obviously the competition changed. Carolina's not very good. Tennessee, quite frankly, is not very good. But that part balances out because the Jags have the third hardest record, hardest strength of schedule in the NFL.
It's been a rough schedule.
The third hardest schedule. Now, what people will say is the Jags haven't beaten anybody good. They haven't.
That's not true.
They lose to all the good teams. The bottom line is there's a lot of like pretty good teams in the NFL. And then there's a few elite teams. San Francisco, obviously the Ravens. They played them both, by the way. And then there are a lot of teams that maybe we thought were good that aren't anymore, like the Eagles. I think the Bengals are kind of in that category. Then there are teams like, well, we didn't really know what they were, and now they're pretty good, like the Browns. Like, they're pretty good.
They're great.
11 wins.
Yes. I think teams like the Eagles and the Bengals are still good. It's just they're not elite and living up to the expectation that people had of 11, 12, 13 wins.
Yeah, I think even like what's interesting to me is I was watching the Bengals. The Bengals, what are they, 8-8?
Mm-hmm.
I think they're 8-8. And they have the second hardest record. And they've also played without their starting quarterback, their franchise quarterback, like a lot of the season.
And they've lost their wide receiver for a few games. He's been banged up for a couple of games.
So it shows you that the schedule does matter, is my point. I mean, you're looking at Houston and Indianapolis, and hats off to them, because to be in this position for both of those teams with what they've handled as well, I think is very impressive. Very, very impressive, especially Houston. But they have done it with a weaker schedule. I mean, there's no doubt that plays a role. I've said this for the last few weeks. I've never factored in the schedule as much as I have like now. It hit me like, that's tough. It's a tough thing to do, to navigate the schedule. Hats off to teams like New England over the years that were able to do it. The Chiefs have been able to do it. I think Baltimore's showing they're able to do it because kind of a seasoned team that's been there before. I think that'll be a next step for the Jaguars, actually, to say, okay, we can beat these teams week to week, right? Not just a once-in-a-while thing, not just play with them, but a week-to-week thing. But I'm telling you what, and I tweeted this yesterday, if the Jags get to 10 wins this year and win the South, which obviously is the goal now because there's one left, with a first-place schedule, that's going to feel, in the building at least, maybe not outside the building, way more improved than last year's 9-8 record. It shows one game. It says the same thing. You won the division. You go to the playoffs. You host a playoff game.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, that is going to be appreciated, I think, a lot more inside because of what they had to navigate to get to that 10th win.
I see. So the challenges along the way in the season are going to make it feel a little more rewarding to everyone inside. What about the sustained success, doing it over 2 years? Does that mean anything to anybody?
It means a ton to me. I mean, I don't know if it means that. I think it does mean something to people. I think they can see that. But to have the first winning season since 04-05, and now you have a chance to go to the playoffs 98-99, that's a long time. So it might mean you lose to the Browns in the first round. I don't know. But at this stage, based on a 4-game losing streak in December, it's like I'm not going to say I don't care. I think Jags fans will be mad. I think all the other stuff will come up. They're not good enough. They're not this. They're not that. We'll rip them all off season. But the bottom line is, I think it's a very big deal. It's a very big deal to win back-to-back years. You are looking for sustained success. And the reason why I think sustained success matters right now is because you're doing it with a new coach and a new quarterback that could lead you here for a long time to come.
Yeah. And this is the early side of it, yeah.
And it's probably the early side of it. So, and I think we're also seeing signs of younger guys getting better. I think Trayvon Walker is a good example of that. Is he better than Hutchinson? That's going to always be the measuring stick. I don't know. What about Kayvon Thibodeau, Aiden Hutchinson, and Trayvon Walker are all pretty good players. Like, why can't they all be good?
Well, they can, but I don't think anyone's saying that they can't. I think it's always going to be Aiden versus Trayvon because only one person can be the number one pick. And if the whole city was screaming for Hutchinson and they went Walker, you could understand why people will forever link those two names together, obviously.
Yeah, I think I get it. I know it. I understand it.
But had you said to any Jags fan at the beginning of the season that these two, Allen and Walker, were going to end up with 25-plus sacks this year, everyone's signing up for it and calling it a wild success.
I just think, and Hutchinson, I think, is a very good player. You saw him dominate the other day. He did it on a big stage, too. I think he's that guy, that kind of like that primetime game. He kind of heats up a little bit because he actually had been stuck around 6 sacks for the last month.
Yeah, plateaued a little bit. A few of these big names had actually for a little bit.
Yeah, and then he had a hat trick against the Cowboys. It just seems like when Hutchinson makes a play, everybody's like, oh, and when Trayvon makes a play, it's like, yeah, but.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, yeah, but what? I mean, the guy's a good football player.
Really good.
Anybody in that building says he's a really good football player, and I think he's ascending. He's an ascending football player. So, and then you just said about Josh Allen. The Jaguars had a chance a couple years ago, and I was kind of critical of this when the whole Yannick Ngakoue thing blew up. And they were losing Jalen Ramsey at the time, too. The Jags had a chance to have something. This is the way we phrased it back then. They had a chance to have something that nobody else in the National Football League had. 2 edge rushers under the age of 25 that looked like they were really good, like going to be double-digit sack guys. Josh, who was coming off 10.5 sacks, and Jan, who has been right around 8-9 sacks his entire career. well, the whole thing blew up with Jan and blah, blah, blah. Fast forward a few years, that may have worked out well in the end. Like, Jan has been kind of a journeyman who still is a productive player, but he can't stick with one team and still does put up numbers. But I think Trayvon's a better football player in every sense of it and every facet of it, all the downs, all this other stuff. And now you might have Josh, because I think they're going to pay him, and Trayvon for years to come. And now both aren't 25 years old. Josh a little older than that, but definitely in their prime or ascending toward their prime. That's going to be a nice tandem. And if you think about what the Jags have now, and again, this feels a little more offseason conversation than yesterday conversation. But as you start to pile up these numbers, Trevor's your guy. Now you have two edge guys. One you're going to pay and one you drafted. And if you look at the other positions that are important in building a team, tackles. Cam Robinson, I think now, I don't think he's going anywhere.
Isn't that wild how he really did, in my eyes, to solidify himself after he was solidified with a franchise tag, and then he's out of here when he gets suspended, and then he's back and Cam's pretty good, and then he's gone. It's like we can live without Cam. And no, we can't live without Cam.
No, it doesn't seem like you can. And not just a 7-1 record. The bottom line is, you know what you got there. And you also don't have to pay some positions that you thought you had to pay. We wondered if they'd have to pay Cisco and Campbell this year. It doesn't look like it. Ridley, maybe. It doesn't look like it. I think Cam and having Anton Harrison, now you have two bookends that are still playing good football, or, again, a young player that's going to play for a long time in Anton Harrison. And then I would say that the corner position is that next one. And how good are the Jags at corner? Because Campbell has had kind of a lost year in many respects. But if you look at the building blocks of a franchise, of a football team, the Jags are in pretty good shape in a lot of these spots. And then they have veterans in other areas too. Now, does that give you a Super Bowl? No. But it also puts you in a pretty good position.
It feels eerily similar to the conversation we were having at the end of last season.
Does it?
A little bit. A little bit. Not in the same names and not in the same positions, but we're going into the offseason last year going, I know it was, they lost to the Chargers, but it seems like they got a lot of guys now in these positions where we can kind of settle in and watch them grow and then just fill out the fringes. And I think all of us were kind of satisfied with that until we saw it actually go down on the field this year. And then it felt like there was something missing.
Well, I guess you could say there's something missing, but I'm not sure if you end up going back-to-back playoff appearances and have a shot at the playoffs and everything else and win division championship twice, then we were that wrong. The Jags did have a lot of talent.
No one's saying that they were void of talent, but to sit back on what you got, what you saw develop this year and go, we just need to fill out the fringes, I think will be another mistake. You need upgrades on this team.
Oh, well, and I think they'll get them more naturally this year. Like, it was a conscious decision to kind of keep everybody. And then I think people are frustrated, Kasey, even over the time, frustrated not going and getting more and kind of holding pat in certain spots. And it seems like it's affected their offensive line at times on the interior, their pass rush at times on the interior especially, maybe even corner spot here or there. But I don't think they're going to stand pat. I think they will now continue. They'll be forced to add, right? They're going to be forced to go get another wide receiver if they don't keep Ridley and Zay Jones. They're going to be forced to maybe add something to the cornerback room if Darius Williams they let walk. It looks like Antonio Johnson's going to take the place of a Rayshon Jenkins.
Antonio Johnson looks great.
He looks like a good pick.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the point being is I think they have some good building blocks in there. And what they've also done a little bit, I think, is made some right choices. Evan Ingram signing him. It's been a great choice.
Great choice.
Right? The development of Trayvon. To go from 3.5 sacks to 9 sacks is a development thing in some way, shape, or form.
Big jump.
And so that gives you a lot of hope going forward.
And by the way, we talked a lot about this team not being physical enough or tackling issues. That is not a guy that you see with tackling issues often. If you are anywhere within the grasp of his 18-foot claws or wingspan, he's wrapping you up.
Yeah, I think most people are going to go into this offseason, by the way, and think like, okay, offensive line, interior, and I think even the defensive interior. But there's going to be other spots. They probably have to get more weapons around Trevor Lawrence, too, because, again, I think you'll probably end up losing Zay Jones and also
probably Ridley.
Yeah, I would say probably Ridley. I mean, I don't know. Maybe you do bring him back, but I think it seems pretty unlikely.
I think you could try. I think there are teams that are going to shove more money at him than Jacksonville will be willing to.
Probably. probably. And the Jags will still have to spend money, but maybe not as much as they thought, or not as many positions. They're going to be like, I need to do this, or as many tough decisions as we thought they might have. It might not. Quite frankly, it looks like they're going to have to pay 2 guys. I think they're still going to pay Trevor this offseason.
In the offseason, makes sense.
And I think they're going to pay Josh Allen.
So Brent Balky, long-lost brother of Trent Balky, you're now the GM. What are you throwing at Josh?
Man,
because those figures are high and a little bit
they're
uneasy.
They're bulky,
yeah,
or bulky,
bulky, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, what's the good pass rushers are going for like $27 to $30 million.
I mean, the great ones are going for 30. You really got to ask yourself: are you paying this guy at like a top 5 pass rusher or a top 5 edge rusher, which I think are two different things based on who's making the most money in the NFL?
Well, what's the difference?
So you have like a guy like TJ Watt making 30. You have Danielle Hunter making 24.
Is that all he's getting?
Yeah, 23.9. That's for a cap hit. We're looking at average annual value you want to look at?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're still in the ballpark. I mean, bottom line is he's
I
going to
don't
be
think
north
you're
of
paying him
25
30.
million.
You think so?
Yeah, he's going to be north of 25 million, no doubt. I forget what was the old Michigan guy, Rashawn Gary.
Yeah, yes.
What did he get from? He just got paid, I think, in the season.
He got a huge deal.
It was over $100 million, but I think it's even going to be more than him. I think that was one of the most recent ones.
Yeah,
and then
I'm
like
looking at
Myles
the values.
Garrett. But I mean, yeah, you're talking north of $25 million.
Gary was 24 AAV.
Okay, so yeah,
Bosa on the Chargers is 27 AAV.
Yeah, it's probably going to be right about that.
Khalil Mack 23.5.
Yeah, that was a little ways ago now.
Montez Sweat just signed that deal. Chicago,
What did he get?
24.5.
Yeah, he's going to get more than Montez Sweat.
So he's going to be number 3. You think?
Yeah, I think he's going to be. I would just say north of 25. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that's 27, 26. You could do some of the tax dollars on it, depending on where you're at versus those guys.
Somebody get me H&R Block on the phone.
Yeah, I mean, you could do some of that, right? I mean, Chicago doesn't. That guy's getting taxed more, so maybe you can get something out of it on this end. He's building a house here. He likes it here. All those things. Maybe you get a tiny little. You're not getting a discount though.
Well,
I mean, you're not
might.
getting the hometown discount. There's nothing to that. That's not happening.
You don't think
he's
so?
getting market value? That's what he's getting.
I think though in 24 now, by the way. I think in 2024 when you're talking hometown discount, you're no longer talking this guy will take $10 million less. You're talking this guy will defer this money or accept it as something else where he wouldn't for another team, so you can build around him.
I think those guys, when they do these two deals, I think both of them will be very agreeable to that kind of thing. Maneuverability with the cap is basically what you're saying. I'll tell you this though, and this is why anybody who hesitates on like Trevor, I'll tell you right now, you pay Trevor now. Because they could have paid Josh Allen
2 years ago.
2 years ago. 2 years ago. And I don't know if I'm criticizing them for not doing it, but I can tell you I had a conversation. I said this to Balky at the combine. I can picture exactly where I was. It wasn't like with a microphone and everything like that. I was like walking to, actually, I think Peterson was taking the podium, and I think we might have already talked to Balky, and I said, are you guys going to consider getting Josh done now? Because I believe they had a ton of money, right? That was the year they spent a ton of money in free agency. It's like, could you do that right now? And I mean, he didn't really like straight up answer. He just we had a little conversation about it, but obviously they didn't at the time. It's like they hadn't seen enough anyway at the time. And I'm going to defend them in this capacity. They were just getting together with Doug and Trent, right? And this working relationship. Doug and his staff hadn't really seen Josh Allen at all. Like, they don't know who he is.
Yeah.
And he hadn't necessarily done stuff. I mean, even the fans up and through last year, the fans were like...
Through early this year.
Yeah, the fans were like, well, we can probably do better.
Yes.
I mean,
hey, Danielle Hunter, they said yes. Yes.
But I'm telling you, I asked that question 2 combines ago. And they could have saved the bunch because the bottom line for me is you could see some of this stuff coming. I kept telling you guys in the offseason, you told me all the numbers on the Pro Football Focus stuff, the pressures, the this or that. It was brewing. He played good football last year.
Yeah.
Played really good football. He didn't get home to the tune of 14 sacks or 12 sacks or 15 sacks. I think he ended up with 7.5 or something. But it was right there. And I think there were some that questioned, even in the building, whether he could fully get there to like 15 sacks, 14 sack guy. But he told us in the production meeting there in August in the preseason, we were in Detroit, and he said the biggest thing, I went back and looked at everybody, and I got to hit my layups. He's like, the people that get to the 14, 15, 16 sacks, they hit their layups. He's like, I missed too many of my layups. When I was there, I didn't get them down. Like right there, you got to get them down. The Watts of the world, those guys get them down. That's what I got to clean up. Other than that, I was there. And, I mean, you can tell this dude has just, Mike DeRocco wrote a great story today in ESPN about the onions that he puts on his legs and stuff before games, part of his preparation. But it's bigger than that. I don't know if I've ever, I'm sure I have, but I don't know if I remember recently seeing an athlete as locked in as him. I've seen him at all different times. I see him on the road in the plane. I see him in a hotel. I see him in an elevator. I see him before a game, getting warmed up on the field. I see him, like, I've actually run into him, like, in the media room a couple of weeks ago while he's in, like, his own darkness retreat in preparation for the game. I mean, he is as locked in as I've seen. And I said this today on Twitter about Ingram and about Foye. These are three guys that are chasing milestones, but they're built a lot alike. If you ask them stuff after a game, they don't get all high and mighty and smiley and like, yeah, we just did all this. They're very even-keeled. It's like, on to the next one. Build the day, next day, next day, next day. Like, he won't break. Foye won't break. I was like, hey, man, you can take a breath. You guys finally got to win. Nope, can't take a breath. Last time we took a breath, we lost 4 in a row.
Lost 4 in a row, and almost everybody got fired.
But it's wild to see that now, and I don't think this is just a coincidence that those three guys in particular, who if you're around them enough, and I'm not around them all the time, I'm just saying I'm around them enough, they are very similar in their approach. Not a lot of highs, not a lot of lows, just boom, locked in. And nobody's more locked in my opinion, than Josh this year specifically.
It's awesome.
And it's paid off in a big way. I mean, I think that's a hard thing to do. You know, people used to say this about Brady, and they're like, hey, no coffee, right? No ice cream, all the diet stuff, and this to that, right? All that stuff. And it's like, okay, part of it's goofy. But the other part is, damn, that is hard to get that locked in. Mm-hmm. And I think what we just saw is Josh Allen be that kind of locked in. Now, was it because he knew he could get generational wealth for his family? Maybe. Was it because he wanted to perform at a better rate than he had performed? Probably. Does he want to be a Hall of Famer? I bet with that kind of mentality.
Oh, yeah.
What people would say is, if I promise you $28 or $30 million, if you did this, would you do it? You would do it for a week. You would do it for a month. But would you do it for the calendar year? And most people would probably say yes, but I think that's a whole hell of a lot harder than we say.
Opinion is different than execution, for sure. Yeah. We've seen contract after contract, guys get big money deals and then take their breath, as you were just saying, and you end up throwing away a season or two before they get cut and have to do it all over again.
It's easy to be satisfied. I mean, he's making $11.5 million. He's not poor.
Yeah. It doesn't seem like money is a motivator for this guy.
Absolutely.
I would say pride and respect for sure with Josh Allen.
Yeah, so that's tapping into something different. It was the same thing with, I mean, if you wanted money, Brady had plenty of it by year 15, 13, 12. He was still doing it. These guys tick different is my point. And I think Josh did that from the offseason on. It wasn't at OTAs. He did his own thing. I think somebody, maybe it was Trayvon, who just referenced like his offseason workout stuff that he bought into and did, and he executed it, man, all the way through, and it paid off for him. One other thing I'll say about Josh, I was thinking about this. People forget. Wasn't it the Kansas City game where he was tackling Mahomes on the sideline, I think, in week 2? And he came up and it held his shoulder.
Yeah, I don't remember.
And he missed a few plays. Well, I remember the scene after the game. He couldn't even put on his shirt. I mean, we're like, oh, that might be a bad one. I think it bothered him for a couple of weeks, but he ended up working himself out of that and into this monster season. So good for him. Good for Evan Ingram. Foye Oluokun right there on the tackle lead. That was a cool day in Jacksonville because a lot of these days have been disappointing with this home schedule, but it was kind of cool to see the Jags in a must-win really dominate for the most part, and the home fans be able to see all these boxes checked. Great moment for Josh. Really cool for Evan Ingram. And these are guys that I think the fans really like and relate to and have been a huge part of the turnaround in Jacksonville that put them in a position to Well, play the Tennessee Titans now for all the marbles.
All the marbles.
On Sunday. And I guess you couldn't script it any better, but we just scripted it last year, didn't we?
Yeah, fair enough. You did. And now here comes Tennessee with a chance at revenge or even just furthering the rivalry that has been Jaguars and Titans for now going on more than 20 years.
Yeah, you got to go back to 99, right? This all starts in 99. I said if there was ever a curse of the Jacksonville Jaguars, it was the Titans in 1999. The Jags were awesome. They were probably the best team in the league, many people thought. And they lost 3 times to the Titans, including the AFC Championship game. And then even Tennessee, who was not that good at times, like really not, from maybe it was like 05 to 12 or 13 before Vrabel. In that stretch, they were – I think it was the St. Louis Rams, the Tennessee Titans, and the Jags as bottom feeders in some of the worst records over like a decade stretch or 7-8 year stretch. And then Vrabel came along and Derrick Henry came along, and I still think they like were better than maybe their roster even showed. They almost outperformed it. And now these last couple, and by the way, they embarrassed the Jags many a times, from Derrick Henry's 99-yard run to Thursday night games where the game was over with 7 minutes to go in the second quarter, and you had to live through it. But the last 2 years, and it all started with a Shaq Quarterman fumble. They were down in that football game. The Titans were driving last year, and the whole kind of shift and turn happened a bit with that fumble on Derrick Henry. The Jags win that game 36-22. Trevor plays well. Trevor has now played well overall against the Tennessee Titans. Mm-hmm. And Doug Peterson is 3-0 right now against the Tennessee Titans. And they obviously won in dramatic fashion last year here at home. I got to believe this game's going to be close. They are going to bring it.
Yeah, it has to. Now, do we know the status of Will Levis? I know he left the game yesterday.
I got to believe this is he got carted off, so I'm thinking this has to be a Tannehill game.
I saw a lot of the Tannehill exploits in that game through Red Zone. Shout out to Red Zone. They do not look like the same team with Tannehill out there.
It's interesting, right? Because you almost, like yesterday, Bryce Young goes down. I'm like, I know people said this on social media too. I didn't want to say it. But I was like, almost a little more concerned about Andy Dalton coming into the game.
Well, yeah, because
right?
he can move. He's shown he can move that ball. And there are lots of teams like that. You look at the Browns with Flacco. They're doing the exact same thing. Tannehill, on the other hand, on this Titans, it looks way clunkier with Tannehill in there. And I kind of want to attribute that to the fact that Levis is helping the team outperform maybe their talent level or skill level. Maybe his energy and his ability, his rocket cannon arm, putting secondaries kind of on their back heels to open up the middle of the field a little bit. His desire or ability or willingness to go head first into a pile of defenders, shoulder down, as opposed to Tannehill, who's not even thinking about moving forward on his legs.
Yeah, I think it could be. You could get energized by the young guy giving you some hope. So I get what you're saying there.
DeAndre Hopkins' numbers have certainly jumped.
Here's the thing. The Titans game should worry. Like when the NFL did this, hey, we're going to play divisional games at the end. I mean, this is kind of what you get. It's what you want. You want the Texans and the Colts playing for a spot, right? Yes. Saturday night. But what's an interesting one here is the Titans are playing for nothing. There's not going to be electricity in that building. Remember, last year here in Jacksonville, there was electricity for everybody to feed on. It was a huge game. It still mattered to Tennessee, even though they were in the tank. If they won the division.
Okay.
Right? And they were so beat up. I mean, they shouldn't even have had as much of a chance as they ended up playing in that game and almost pulling off the upset. But this is interesting to me because it's almost like this is where Vrabel could be at his best. The last game probably in a Tennessee uniform for Derrick Henry. The last game in a Tennessee uniform for probably Ryan Tannehill, right? I mean, guys like that. And then on top of it, Vrabel against the Jags and just trying to stick it to somebody in the AFC South one more time. Easy to get the guys up for this one.
So that's why I think the stadium is going to be jacked up.
I don't think the stadium is.
Like, all you need is a Titans touchdown before the Jags score it, and I think it's going to be hard to get those people to calm down.
I think the stadium's going to be pretty empty. I mean, because here's the deal. This is the Jags playing against the Colts a couple years ago when the Colts had everything on the line.
But the only other part you're not including, which I think matters, and maybe not as much as I think, is that would be the analogy if the year prior the Colts kept the Jags out of the playoffs.
I hear what you're saying. I think there's definitely some rivalry built into this. I just think the fans might have checked out in Nashville, and I don't know that.
You might be right.
But and especially if there's any sense of a cool weather or rain, and I don't even know what the forecast is right now. I think it's like in the upper 40s. I don't think there's rain. But on the heels of all the holidays and everything else, like, I don't know, man. I just think this is going to be a pretty low-key atmosphere. So they're going to have to get their own energy, where the Jags should be able to play with as much energy as possible, knowing what's on the line. And we'll see. And the Jags are just better. But they were better last year, too, with that Tennessee team at this stage.
Yeah.
And
Jags were streaking, Tennessee spiraling.
And Tennessee still brought it. I mean, Tennessee should scare the hell out of you in this game, quite frankly.
Yeah, way more so than Carolina or the Bucs.
I just gave you two examples. The Jags beat Indianapolis in a game that meant nothing. Derrick Henry's last game is probably the one that's going to catch my attention the most. Like, get him going one more time against his hometown team. Because this is it for him. I think he's pretty much already acknowledged that. I think everybody knows that.
He's said it, yeah.
But what a way for the Jags, we have all the history here, to be able to go back-to-back to the playoffs and win the division by beating the Tennessee Titans. Sure does take some of the sting out of those years if they can do it.
I mean, what else do you got to do except for go to the playoffs twice on their back to take the sting out of the rivalry?
There's another couple of ways the Jags can get in the postseason, but I don't think anybody's looking at that way. What will they do? Will it be C.J. Beathard, Trevor Lawrence? How big the Jamal Agnew injury? And what about Christian Kirk possibly coming back sooner than any of us thought? Talk all about it. Brent Friends, Happy New Year edition on ESPN 690.
If you're experiencing domestic violence, Hubbard House is here for you. Access life-saving, life-changing resources by calling 904-354-3114.
Have you been looking for a way to make a meaningful impact? Make a change in a child's future for the better? Become a mentor to at-risk youth in Jacksonville. The Malavia Washington Youth Foundation has been developing champions in classrooms, on tennis courts, and throughout communities for the past 27 years. Your support in serving hope and changing lives will increase graduation rates, foster healthy relationships, boost self-confidence, and academic performance in the youth who need it most. This is your chance to make a lasting impact on our future leaders. Meet once per week to engage in academic and social emotional support and form a bond you'll cherish forever. The students at Malavia Washington Youth Foundation will benefit from your encouragement, empowerment, and academic assistance. To learn more, head to malwashington.com/mentors or send an email to volunteers@malwashington.com. Again, learn more by visiting malwashington.com/mentors or email volunteers@malwashington.com.
When the big story breaks, Action News Jax gives you an instant advantage with the biggest team of experienced reporters, giving you more details because we get more details with live, fast-changing updates as they happen. So you know the whole story, streaming on every screen, so you're informed no matter where you are. There's a reason we're #1 for breaking news, because if it's happening now and in your neighborhood, it's on Action News Jax. Local coverage you can count on.
UNCF salutes HBCUs. Each year, UNCF awards more than 10,000 scholarships and helps 60,000 students build better futures. Go to uncf.org right now to donate. Remember, a mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Are you tired of looking at your old, grimy, and mildewy bathtub, looking to replace it with a beautiful walk-in shower, but cash is tight? For as little as $89 a month, no payments for 12 months for consumers who qualify, Remodeling Loans can put you into a beautiful new walk-in shower in as little as 1 day. You can rest easy knowing that Remodeling Loans, a network of certified contractors, screened and handpicked by us, offers premier products, top-rated service, and value, increasing the beauty, safety, and value of your home. A new walk-in shower will also provide you with a germ-free, slip-resistant, safe, and beautiful new bathroom. Call 800-921-1403 and take advantage of our holiday special of free installation. Our agents are standing by, ready to schedule your appointment with our design team at no cost and no obligation to you. All callers will receive a free upgrade of premium colors just for calling today. A beautiful new walk-in shower is now within reach. Call 800-921-1403. That's 800-921-1403.
you and your children can find safety. Hubbard House offers free, confidential shelter and support for local survivors of domestic violence. Learn more at hubbardhouse.org.
Warmest wishes for a joyous holiday season and a happy new year from your friends at ESPN 690 and Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys.
Here's Ben and John Lupo, owners of Beards Diamonds.
It's funny. My dad has sold people engagement rings, and now I'm selling their kids engagement rings, and anniversary gifts, and birthday gifts.
We're blessed with the relationships we've built over the years. We have no corporate bosses setting the price. The chain stores can't touch our prices. They just can't.
Check out our full inventory at beardsdiamonds.com, including the largest selection of GIA-certified diamonds and lab-grown diamonds. Anybody that steps foot in our store is automatically part of the Beards family.
Beards Diamonds in the St. John's Town Center.
From selling out of the back of a car to one of the biggest outfitters in the Southeast, Baker Sports is quite the story. And on a daily basis, they are helping you write your story with a high school name or sports team across a uniform and so much more. And now it's a one-stop shop with Baker Sports, carrying Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour. They already make you look good, and now they can help you look better than ever. Baker Sports, custom sports apparel since 1997. Shop with the hometown team, and it's easy to do at bakersport.com.
Hi, folks. Terry Norvell here, inviting you to join me and my broadcast partner, Patrick Young, weekdays at high noon for the Young and Norvell Show. Lunch is on you, the most compelling sports talk in the area. Well, that's on us. The Young and Norvell Show, weekdays at noon on ESPN 690.
Hey, we're in for a bit talking Jags, of course, coming off a win. We did this last year. We kind of liked it, so we do it again. I'm not sure they're liking it as much.
Who's they?
You guys.
Oh, yeah. No, we hate it. It's a fun time to be alive for a Jaguars fan. Enjoy it for the week.
I thought your Jets were going to do better, by the way.
Why? Why would you think that? Why would you think this?
I think I told you, I thought Flacco was going to run out.
Boy, were you wrong.
Well, he did it in the first half. He kind of did in the second half.
He was falling asleep.
Threw for 13 yards in the second
half. He could only
half.
stay up for a certain amount of time before you got to give the man a recliner.
I don't want to say this in light. I don't want to say this in the light of the Jags win, okay? I don't think the Jags, just because they beat the Panthers, all of a sudden go in the Super Bowl. I think they still have to kind of – it certainly told me, at least the belief I had in their locker room is that they had some resilience in them. And I like to hear the things that I heard yesterday, like they thought they had the best week of practice. They obviously had like a meeting and the player committee and everything else with Doug, and they kind of got everything on the same page and didn't freak out, but put the work in and got the result.
Yeah.
In a spot where you could freak out. I mean, people, when you lose 4 in a row and it's slipping away, it's hard to get off that train. Yeah. And the Jags did it. So I appreciate that, and it kind of reinforces what I thought about this team, that they have some mental toughness and they can call on that. And they needed it, and they got it. And by the way, there was a Carolina team, and I have no idea how this happened, but they scored 30 points somehow against Green Bay the week prior. I have no idea how that happened because they suck.
They cannot move the ball.
Like, they are really bad.
You thought the Jags had trouble moving the ball? Watch that Carolina team
Holy
yesterday.
cow, man. I mean, we have watched some of those kind of teams in Jacksonville. That was bad. But so I don't think they're all of a sudden like going on this crazy run. Sure, what the heck? Get in the dance if you can win next week, and you never know what can happen. It's a streaky football team. Lost 2, won 5. Lost 4. Can you go win a few in a row and make some noise in the playoffs? I think they're capable if Trevor Lawrence comes back and is healthy. But as it pertains to, like, the Browns, I still believe this. I'd rather play them, I think, than any of the teams that exist. Because I know Flacco's hot right now. But I'm just not convinced he's going to keep doing this. Like, he is getting away with stuff that most quarterbacks do not get away with. He's thrown 8 interceptions in the last month. He's an awesome story, cool story. Stefanski should win Coach of the Year. I don't want to take anything away from that. And they might just be better than the Jags because they can beat you up a little bit. But I still am not afraid to play Flacco. Like, bring him on. Like, I'll take it. I'll take my chances.
Here's the thing. I understand people have been talking a lot about Joe because he's averaging over 300 yards and he's throwing touchdowns, but he's not the reason, or his quarterback play isn't necessarily the reason they're winning these games. That is a very good team, independent of the quarterback position. They just needed the slightest help under center. Just the slightest, just a slight upgrade over PJ Walker or DTR. Just anybody who's breathing and can toss a football, get in there and help the Browns win a game. And Joe Flacco comes and gives him even more than that. He gives him a competent quarterback.
But Stefanski, I mean, like, he's kind of reinvented them. They're throwing it like 40 times a game now. They weren't doing that.
You're right.
They weren't even doing that with Deshaun Watson. That's not how they've been built. And that's actually something I think the Jags, you wonder right now if they're reinventing themselves a little bit. And I wonder if that game yesterday showcased it. Now, I think Doug is very good at knowing what it takes to win. Now, can they execute things? We'll see. But I think he gets a good feel about his opponent and what it takes. And what they needed yesterday was something that we all thought. Don't turn the football over, and you probably win the game. And that's what they did. They just kept running. They obviously were dominant on the defensive side of the ball. Don't make mistakes, and you have a very good chance. But I almost wonder if even if Trevor comes back, does he adopt that style this coming week and maybe even beyond, just to avoid the mistakes and give them a chance? Because the mistakes were mounting at an alarming rate. Does he play it a little closer to the vest this week against Tennessee and in the playoffs if they make it?
Well, I think if Trevor plays, then you should expect to see a little more conservative game plan, only because they probably don't want to wear out that shoulder as he just comes back. And if the team can move the ball in this way, like we just saw him do against the Panthers, granted, it's against the Panthers, but they do have a decent defense and a great coordinator. If the team can move the ball on the ground, and with the short passing game over the middle, then you don't necessarily have to put the stress test on Trevor's shoulder. You can wait another week to do that, if not multiple more weeks to do it before you get to the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't think the Jags were super great in the run game yesterday. They had one break off, but they stuck with it. And, I kept pounding that number.
26 attempts.
Yeah, the number is huge. It's actually 35.
35 attempts.
Now, a couple of those were kneel downs by Barkley, but
and Beathard,
29 carries is the magic number. If they're 27 carries or less, they're 1-7 this year. So they have to stick with the run, and they did that. But again, they're doing that against a football team that can't score 20 points. Like, they knew that from 10 minutes into the game. They probably knew it before the game, but they knew it 10 minutes into the game. That team wasn't going to score 20 points.
But you also don't feel like the Jags' run attack is fixed.
No, that's my point.
Okay.
Like, I don't think it's fixed, but I think you can get away with doing more of what they did. I said this all last week. I don't care if it's working or not. Keep running the football. It's important to keep running the football. They worked play action on the Beathard to Agnew play because you were running the football. Even at the time, I think they were running it for 13 carries for 27 yards.
Yeah.
But they were giving it to Etienne. They were giving it to Bigsby. Surprised to see Bigsby involved so much yesterday.
A lot of Bigsby yesterday.
But I almost wonder, again, this is Doug, and Doug would never say this because I think it would look like he was taking things lightly. Obviously, Trevor's not playing. He decided to go with Tyler Shatley instead of Walker or Little because he probably thought, you know what? I think we can get through this game.
Walker or
but
Ezra.
Get those.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what did I say?
Walker or Little, yeah.
Walker or Little.
Or
Walker
Ezra.
or Ezra. Ezra or Cleveland, Walker or Little. And so I think he was probably like, let's get these guys healthier. It might even have been the same with Zay. Maybe they could have got Zay back there, although that seems a little more distant. And they're like, nope, we're going to get everybody as right as we can. We think we can do this anyway. And I just wonder if that was a little bit of his thought process, even to the tune of Bigsby. We don't need to bury Etienne in this game.
Sure.
We can use all three backs, or at least a combo of backs, and we need to see more out of this guy anyway, and now that we've sat him down for the last month.
Well, it would have been nice for your boys' parlay if they threw to Etienne a little bit more yesterday, but fine. That's not what the cards had. 29 rushes between the backfield, Etienne, Bigsby, and Johnson.
Johnson had a few, yeah.
If you take away the 62-yarder, you're talking about 40 yards on 15 carries for Etienne. It's about 2.5 yards a clip for the whole backfield.
Yeah.
So can you win against the Titans at 2.5 yards, or even a playoff game against the Browns? That's tough sledding.
If
much
your defense
tougher
plays
than
like
Carolina.
that, you can.
Yes,
right?
if you shut out a team, you could beat anybody like that.
I don't mean necessarily like that, but I think Tennessee's another team that's going to struggle to score 20 points. They just do. And especially the way they're built, their offensive line isn't very good.
And if Levis isn't there, it's even harder. Yeah.
My point is you can play it a lot like that. Now, Cleveland might be a little bit different. But I think either way, Aaron, it doesn't matter who you play right now. I don't care if it's Baltimore. And Baltimore might even be more specific to this, that you've got to keep pounding the rock. You've got to keep them honest with that front, and you also got to limit possessions on the other side.
Yeah.
Right? You got to shrink the ball game. And that's not necessarily a Doug mentality. He wants to go score points and score 30 points. Remember, that was kind of the idea of this football team. But what I'm trying to say is, do the Jags do almost what Stefanski has done in an opposite way? Stefanski and his offense was kind of built like that. We're going to play good defense. We're going to shrink the game. We're going to run. We're going to beat you up, right? Well, now he's all of a sudden, Flacco's coming in. It's like boom, 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 throwing it deep to guys that they don't even have a lot of guys. And they're using Njoku. They got him more involved. I'm wondering if Doug reinvents this thing a little bit, says, listen, at least until we get Christian back or until we feel like we're all like clicking on all cylinders, we're going to run. We're going to have 11, 12 play drives. We're going to convert on third downs, and we're going to play solid. I'm going to trust the defense is going to play well, and we're going to make our field goals, and we're going to have a chance to win the game rather than taking the chance to win the game out of ourselves because we just keep throwing it up on ourselves and giving it to the other team. I think he did that against Carolina. I think he's going to do that against Tennessee. I'm not sure he's going to be able to do that in the postseason if they make it, but I think he might.
I like your philosophy only because we know Travis Etienne's a home run hitter, right? Like, he can dink and dunk and hit singles or ground balls, but at some point, he's going to go to the house from 62 yards out, 35 yards out, or 7 yards out. He's going to get there if you keep feeding him the ball. So I like that. But the comparison to the Browns is just, and I understand it's not necessarily a one-for-one you're making here. You're talking about how a team kind of changed their personality or game philosophy.
Because I think it's very unusual.
But that being said, that's also a Browns team that when they used the philosophy of running, they were doing it at 5.5 yards a clip and getting first downs every 2 plays. It's not something the Jags have shown that they can win games on or be successful with. So I hesitate to go, the Jags should focus more 9 run to 6 pass or whatever the ratio was that I think I heard you say earlier. I think it's a good compliment to the team. I think you got to stick with the run as they showed this past weekend versus Carolina. There's a reason. There's a method to the madness. But I think to win these games, you got to wake up people like Ridley and like Etienne in the passing game, especially without Agnew now, and really lean on Evan Ingram like you've been doing, especially with C.J. Beathard. Seems like Evan Ingram is like the guy in his Rolodex.
Can they do this? Can they win with C.J. Beathard?
Yeah, I think they
Tennessee?
can. I think they can, yeah.
I thought C.J. Beathard was great. I think he's been great, by the way.
Quintessential backup.
Yeah, I mean, you look at what he's done now, and he went 9 of 10 against Cincinnati in relief. He went 11 of 15 against Tampa in relief, and I think he was 17 of 24 yesterday.
Yeah.
And that is very efficient, passing the ball.
More importantly, he's not losing the game for you.
And he's not giving the ball up. He did fumble against Cincinnati in that first play. Yep. They were lucky to recover, and then everything else was good after that.
I think he fumbled the second time he had the ball and ran with it, but recovered it. In that game.
Yes. Yeah, right around midfield, and I think Parker Washington recovered it or something.
He was like 2 for 2, and it was like, oh, God.
Yeah. And by the way, he can't get hurt. He was hurting yesterday.
Yeah, that's another thing. So, like, we pick up Mac Barkley off the Giants trash pile, and it's like, all right, well, now the kid's got to play.
Yeah,
it's
no.
like, ooh.
The craziest thing about, when you can tell your grandkids you were at that game yesterday, the last day of 2023, Jaguars pushing to make the playoffs. They end a 4-game slide. Evan Ingram gets 100 catches. Josh Allen breaks the franchise record. C.J. Beathard wins in relief. And I got to see Matt Barkley play, too. Like, what the hell? That's a good trivia question.
Yeah.
Who was the quarterback that came in for an injured C.J. Beathard?
Well, it also helps with the grid.
20 years from now, people will forget that. That's a good grid one.
We're going to be gridding that one.
But I don't know, man. I just feel like they're limited. I think he does a good job. But I think they also won't make throws and try certain things. It becomes pretty obvious what they're trying to do. They're going to throw the outs to Ridley. He can win those outs, but they're going to throw those outs. He still makes me a little bit nervous. Overall in his career, he hasn't turned the football over much. So maybe he gives you that chance. But I do think this time of year as well, you have to make plays. And I'm just not sure, is he a guy that's going to make play for you offensive? Is he going to make a big-time throw? Like, I thought Ingram made some terrific catches in traffic yesterday, kind of to help Beathard out, which is great. Like, that's what you've got to do. Again, I thought Beathard was fantastic. Good for him. Earned all $7.5 million that the Jags have paid him now in the last 3 years with that one win alone, in my opinion. But now you got to go do it again, potentially. Because how do you feel about Trevor? I mean, the Jags say now that they knew that he wasn't going to play like early last week. Never was even going to go.
Right.
Trevor basically said that to C.J. Beathard. Knew you better be ready to go.
Yeah.
Doug does not sound like, hey, yeah, we'll have him back. I mean, he sounds more confident about Christian Kirk coming back to the lineup than he does about Trevor.
Which is wild because we thought Kirk was out for the season, but I don't think it's a sound deal. I think C.J. Beathard it's a very winnable game for the Jaguars against the Titans with C.J. Beathard.
Yeah, but I'm starting to wonder if we'll even see Trevor again this year.
That is a little bit concerning for sure.
Yes, that's my point.
Because when you get to the Browns in round 1, which, by the way, they're locked into that 5th spot, I believe, then now you're concerned a little bit with C.J. Beathard in the backfield. You may need someone who can pull the trigger on a couple of magical plays.
Has that run through your mind at all? Like, I don't feel like people are freaking out about this in Jacksonville. Yeah, and I'm not sure freaking out's the right word. You're coming off a win, and you are playing Tennessee where you think you can win anyway. Like, I get that. But I think we should be a little more concerned with the idea that Trevor is even going to play this year again.
Correct me if it's an AC joint sprain.
Yeah.
So what's the heal time on that? Like 4 to 6? Or it really
I think it all depends. I mean, but they keep saying tolerance. And we know this about Trevor. The pain, he can handle the pain tolerance.
Yep.
The bottom line is, can he throw the football?
That's we're not talking about tolerance in the hip or the leg when you're running. It's like you need the shoulder to work to throw. Like how can you be accurate or have zip on the ball? Tolerance or not, to still do it knowing it's going to hurt is tolerance. But can you do it at full force? I think that might go past tolerance at that point.
I don't feel like people are even bringing that up.
And no one wants to mention it.
But honestly, I mean, I'm wondering, and I have no idea. I don't think maybe they don't even know.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you can't be curious. The fact that he didn't practice all last week, and now they're not saying, hey, yeah, this was good. We feel like we can get him back. I mean, I don't think Doug's trying to play coy here at all either. I think he's trying to get to Wednesday and see what his situation is. It sounds like he might have done some work or whatever throughout the week, just kind of individual stuff on his own, like rehabbing. But this is what I said about this injury. It's not just getting back for Trevor. It's got to be the ability to make the throws, throw it in a tight window, right? Throw a 40-yard pass if need be. You really start to wonder with this kind of injury, and we have no idea how much it hurts, can he make those throws? And I have no idea, and I don't know how any of us can. The good news, I would say, and I told you this, he was in a sling on the way home for precaution reasons, I would expect.
From Tampa?
From Tampa. He hasn't been in a sling all week that we know of, that we've seen him. We saw him at the Clemson game. We saw him yesterday. It wasn't in a sling or anything. So I assume that's a good thing.
Sure.
But I just don't know how we can sit here and not at least ask the question, or at least not feel like, ugh. Like they got to win a football game on the road in Tennessee against a team that's beaten them a lot, maybe without their franchise quarterback.
Well, Brent from Los Angeles is part of the optimistic Jaguars contingent. He just texted us. He says the Tennessee team is terrible. Terrible! Could be worse than the Panthers right now with a terrible O-line, defense missing a ton of pieces. The Jags will roll, says Brent from Los Angeles.
Is that my burner account?
It might be. Sunshine and rainbows on text.
Listen, first of all, I don't believe in rolling, okay?
Not in the NFL,
Not in the NFL. I don't buy it. Did you see what happened yesterday? The Bucs, who looked so good against the Jags, Baker Mayfield went 5 for 10 for 40 yards against the Saints in the first half.
Yep. I needed that.
The Philadelphia Eagles just lost to Arizona.
Yeah, but I predicted that.
They did it at home, Aaron.
Yeah, I know. With a chance to win at the end, too.
I mean, I don't get this league. This league is baffling.
Mm-hmm.
It is absolutely bad. And if you think the Jaguars are going to Tennessee and rolling, first of all, I love you. But I think you're crazy.
Crazy Brent from Los Angeles.
I mean, I don't know how you can predict that. And they might not have their quarterback.
A lot of people think that's a better thing.
No, you're out of your mind if you think it's a better thing. That is what I'm trying to tell you. I actually don't hear as much of that as I thought we'd hear today.
You hear a little bit, though.
I know.
Especially because he was rolling yesterday a little bit.
Those are the trolls. Like, there is nobody, and I'm telling you, I'll say this with all due respect for Beathard. I have a ton of respect for what he did yesterday. I think that was fantastic. And I feel so good for him. That's cool stuff. But you are out of your damn mind if you'd rather have C.J. Beathard play Sunday against the Titans in a winner-take-all game than Trevor Lawrence. So don't even say it out loud. We'll be back. Brent Friends on ESPN 690.
Are you tired of looking at your old, grimy, and mildewy bathtub? Looking to replace it with a beautiful walk-in shower, but cash is tight? For as little as $89 a month, no payments for 12 months for consumers who qualify. Remodeling loans can put you into a beautiful new walk-in shower in as little as 1 day. You can rest easy knowing that Remodeling Loans, a network of certified contractors, screened and handpicked by us, offers premier products, top-rated service, and value, increasing the beauty, safety, and value of your home. A new walk-in shower will also provide you with a germ-free, slip-resistant, safe, and beautiful new bathroom. Call 800-921-1403 and take advantage of our holiday special of free installation. Our agents are standing by, ready to schedule your appointment with our design team at no cost and no obligation to you. All callers will receive a free upgrade of premium colors just for calling today. A beautiful new walk-in shower is now within reach. Call 800-921-1403. That's 800-921-1403.
If you're experiencing domestic violence, Hubbard House is here for you. Access life-saving, life-changing resources by calling 904-354-3114.
Have you been looking for a way to make a meaningful impact? Make a change in a child's future for the better? Become a mentor to at-risk youth in Jacksonville. The Malavia Washington Youth Foundation has been developing champions in classrooms, on tennis courts, and throughout communities for the past 27 years. Your support in serving hope and changing lives will increase graduation rates, foster healthy relationships, boost self-confidence, and academic performance in the youth who need it most. This is your chance to make a lasting impact on our future leaders. Meet once per week to engage in academic and social emotional support and form a bond you'll cherish forever. The students at Malavia Washington Youth Foundation will benefit from your encouragement, empowerment, and academic assistance. To learn more, head to malwashington.com/mentors or send an email to volunteers@malwashington.com. Again, learn more by visiting malwashington.com/mentors or email volunteers@malwashington.com.
When the big story breaks, Action News Jax gives you an instant advantage with the biggest team of experienced reporters, giving you more details because we get more details with live, fast-changing updates as they happen. So you know the whole story, streaming on every screen, so you're informed no matter where you are. There's a reason we're #1 for breaking news, because if it's happening now and in your neighborhood, it's on Action News Jax. Local coverage you can count on.
UNCF salutes HBCUs. Each year, UNCF awards more than 10,000 scholarships and helps 60,000 students build better futures. Go to uncf.org right now to donate. Remember, a mind is a terrible thing to waste.
You and your children can find safety. Hubbard House offers free, confidential shelter and support for local survivors of domestic violence. Learn more at hubbardhouse.org.
Warmest wishes for a joyous holiday season and a happy new year from your friends at ESPN 690 and Anajar and Levine.
WOKV Jacksonville. Listen live everywhere you go on ESPN690.com. ESPN 690, Jacksonville's home for ESPN Radio.
But cash is tight? For as little as $89 a month, no payments for 12 months for consumers who qualify. Remodeling Loans can put you into a beautiful new walk-in shower in as little as 1 day. You can rest easy knowing that Remodeling Loans, a network of certified contractors, screened and handpicked by us, offers premier products, top-rated service, and value, increasing the beauty, safety, and value of your home. A new walk-in shower will also provide you with a germ-free, slip-resistant, safe, and beautiful new bathroom. Call 800-921-1403 and take advantage of our holiday special of free installation. Our agents are standing by, ready to schedule your appointment with our design team at no cost and no obligation to you. All callers will receive a free upgrade of premium colors just for calling today. A beautiful new walk-in shower is now within reach. Call 800-921-1403. That's 800-921-1403.
Here's Ben and John Lupo, owners of Beards Diamonds.
It's funny. My dad has sold people engagement rings, and now I'm selling their kids engagement rings and anniversary gifts and birthday gifts.
We're blessed with the relationships we've built over the years. We have no corporate bosses setting the price. The chain stores can't touch our prices. They just can't.
Check out our full inventory at beardsdiamonds.com, including the largest selection of GIA-certified diamonds and lab-grown diamonds. Anybody that steps foot in our store is automatically part of the Beards family.
Beards Diamonds in the St. John's Town Center.
Broadcasting live from the Anajar and Levine studios. Anajar and Levine Accident Attorneys. Call 1-800-747-FREE. That's 1-800-747-3733.
WOKV Jacksonville. Listen live everywhere you go on ESPN690.com. ESPN 690, Jacksonville's home for ESPN Radio.
ESPN 690 and Action Sports Shacks presents Brent and Friends.
Today is one of the worst days that I've had in a long time.
We're getting a little punchy around here, people. It's been a lot in a row.
I would love to punch you guys.
Ow! It really hit me. Brent and Friends with Brent Martineau, Aaron Schachter, and Kasey Kuhrts. Jacksonville's home for ESPN Radio. ESPN 690.
The Jaguars win big over Carolina. Festive day around the new year. Had so many different thoughts about this game for the Jags, that they do win and the winning seasons back to back. And then I was watching Carolina play, and I'm like, that was the Jags like 2 years ago. I mean, maybe they weren't that bad under Urban, but 3 years ago they were that bad when they were
1-win
1-15.
team, sure, yeah.
So
weren't they a 2-win team 2 years ago?
They were 3 wins 2 years ago, still had the number one pick. But, like, last week, I love you, Twitter, X, but, like, you're out of your mind. And this is what I mean by it. You're firing everybody.
Oh, yeah, everyone was fired.
Like, you're firing everybody last week. And whether you think they should be fired, whether you think they're not good enough, you're out of your mind if you think the owner's fired them. The owner's been patient through a bunch of stuff.
Sure.
And he gets his first back-to-back winning seasons, and the first one around here in like 20 years, and you think people are going to go?
Yeah, it's pretty. It's like, pretty wild.
I mean, there's no logic behind that. Now, whether it's right or wrong, you can debate it. Now, you can tell me I'm an idiot. You can tell Shad Khan he's dumb for doing it. You can say Bulky doesn't belong. The bottom line is, if you want Bulky out of here, or if you want Press Taylor out of here, you're out of your mind. They ain't firing anybody.
It's not unique to Jacksonville. That kind of like
I get it.
They want to fire Sirianni in Philly right now.
Well, of course, they wanted to fire Stefanski 15 times over. He's going to be coach of the year, fire, coach of the year.
Yeah. McDermott in Buffalo, who's about to have an 11-win team.
Yeah, he was fired about 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But we did that. Like, we did the whole blame game, right? And I don't get it.
This is, I'll agree, this is what the Carolina game does show fans, because you look at my team over there in the green and white, losing humiliatingly 3-4 games in a row now, and you go, all right, there's a coach who does not have his locker room behind him anymore. Doesn't. He's not going to lose his job over it. The owner's already said he's going to keep his job. But if the Jags finish this year, Brent, by losing 6 in a row, would you feel like Peterson still had the locker room?
Yeah, I think you'd feel different. I get it. I get that, and especially if you had lost to Carolina as bad as they are. I get the ebbs and flows of this thing. I do, but there wasn't any bit of me that was saying fire everybody last week is my point. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people were. Now, if you had given me 2 more weeks after that, and it did, and you finished the epic collapse.
You wouldn't be able to blame them.
I guess I would. Yeah, I think maybe you do have to shake something up just because of the nature of it. But now if you put this into context, like even if they were to lose this week, I think the context is there that it's not changing. There's a lot of good stuff going on in Jacksonville. Is it good enough? Certainly debatable. And probably I don't think right now I feel good about the Jags going to the Super Bowl. So at the end of the day, you're going to say, no, it's not good enough. The idea is to get to the Super Bowl. I think they'll say that internally too. I just don't think they'll say it to the tune of firing people.
Yeah.
I think they'll admit some mistakes, at least internally, maybe not publicly, and then they got to try to fix them.
Do you think, not counting coaches who get hired by other teams, do you think there are changes on the way to the coaching staff this offseason?
I don't think so. I mean, this has been I guess the one spot, and I think he's a good coach, but I guess performance-wise, offensive line has not been really that strong by the numbers the last couple of years.
Now, if you listen to the front office, they'll tell you that injuries were the reason this year.
And how much blame will they put on? But I'll say this. I think the offensive line in totality has had some issues. I think you can point some blame and criticism because that's the way you do this in this business. The offensive line should be better. I also think they've done a hell of a job with the rookie right tackle. So don't you give them credit for that? Like, it's what I've been saying about, like, everybody's like, Balky's draft, this draft, this draft. Okay, I get that. I understand that. I think it deserves some criticism. We've been critical of it in certain spots. But this is a franchise that sucks at first-round draft picks over the decades. This kid's a good player that they found. And they knew they found. They loved him. And they traded back from 24 to 25 to 26. They accumulated another pick, and guess who they got with that pick? Antonio Johnson, who looks like a pretty good player. So that doesn't mean there's no blame or criticism to go around. But as you're blaming and criticism, I think it's fair to acknowledge that they really might have hit a home run on the first-round pick, saved $60, $70, $80 million in the process, and got a better player and a more versatile player that you might even be able to slide to left tackle. That should be acknowledged. And by the way, Trayvon Walker is looking better by the week.
Really is.
Than he was 6 weeks ago.
So happy for him, too.
But that's a bulky decision. That's the guy you're killing because he didn't take Aiden Hutchinson. I think he took a pretty good football player. And the coaches who you're criticizing are obviously developing him. So, again, this isn't like this whole, I'm not going to stand on a pedestal and defend Balky and the coaching staff. I'm just telling you, the fact of the matter is, if you think people are going, I think you're headed down the wrong side. Even last week, that's what I was trying to kind of put the fire out with a little bit because it just doesn't make sense. I mean, this franchise has not won back-to-back years in 20 years. And these guys that are in the building right now are responsible for flipping that from front office to coaches to players. That's a pretty good thing to put on your resume in Jacksonville. Might just be ho-hum in Kansas City, New England, or Baltimore, but it's a pretty big deal in Jacksonville.
What did Tyler Shatley starting tell you?
It told me that they thought they could win the game, and they were going to rest Walker and Ezra. Walker and little Ezra and Cleveland.
So what you're saying is either next week or in the Cleveland playoff, that's not what we should expect to see out there, most likely.
Yeah, I would say you'll probably see – I still think you're going to see Ezra Cleveland. I think that's the experienced guy, but – depends who's more hurt. It seems like Walker Little's the more banged-up guy with the hamstring. And I will say this, Doug goes out of his way to give those guys props for playing as hurt as they've been, especially the previous week against the Bucs to get back in there.
Jags Forever in the chat says, first 4 picks in the draft should be nothing but linemen. And while I'm sure he's not being literal, you can understand the sentiment there. Everyone's looking for upgrades at offensive line. I ask you, Brent, if you've got an Ezra Cleveland, which I guess they'd have to re-sign him to bring him back, but you got a Walker Little, you got Cam Robinson, you got Anton Harrison. You're probably not bringing back Brandon Sheriff. Are you starting over again at right guard, or do you think it's better they go in a free agency for that kind of thing?
No, yeah, they'll start over. They'll either draft or – and they're like Cooper Hodges a little bit, so they may draft more or try to upgrade. I don't know how much they can tell about Cooper Hodges, who was hurt this year. But Sheriff, I believe, is done. And I think they'll try to upgrade over Fortner, quite frankly. They should. Listen, if the criticism, I said this again last week about Balky, he's not void of criticism. I think his biggest criticism is he says that he's a trench guy. He's a big guy evaluator. And I think he's missed in spots on the interior of their offensive line and the interior even of their defensive line. Fadakasi, although Roy Robertson-Harris is coming on the last couple of weeks, I think Devon Hamilton's a little bit of an unfortunate break, but their offensive line on the interior has been misplayed. Sheriff has not been the guy he was. I get what they were doing. It just turned out that he wasn't the exact guy, although he's getting better this season too. I don't think he's allowed many pressures over the last month. Their problem has really been on the left side of the line because of the revolving door.
Yep.
So, again, my biggest criticism, I have 2 major criticisms of Balky. The interior of the offensive and defensive line, not as good as he thought or they thought. And also their inability to bring somebody else in that could have helped them. Because Clowney, even though they had a lot of good defensive players, sure helped Baltimore. So did Roquan Smith when they traded for him. They just kept getting good players. And obviously a guy like Leonard Floyd, very good too. So would they have been better even in your defense than the Chasons of the world or somebody else? I think it's fair to criticize for those points. Let's get to the phone lines and let's get to Steven. Happy New Year, Steven.
Stevie.
Hey, Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year, bud.
Thank God to start the year off right with a win. I just want to say I'm happy for Josh. You know, he set the bar now at 16.5. He's the new mayor right now, as far as I'm concerned. Trayvon got the 9 sacks, had a great game. Defense played good overall. Brent, you're right. Antonio Johnson was a steal in the 5th round.
He's a dog.
And the offensive line, for the most part, did their job. It was great to have Cam Robinson back. Him and Derek Brown got into it, the biggest hothead on our team, and Derek wanted to get into it with him. The running game could be improved, but like we've been saying, just pound it, and eventually it'll work. And it did yesterday. And mind you, it was kind of funny, the video coming out of Dave Tepper losing his temper and throwing a drink at somebody. So there's a lawsuit waiting to happen. But
Steve, it's a good point. I don't know that it's a lawsuit, but Brent, we haven't even mentioned it yet.
Yeah,
Do
we're
you
going to
think?
get into it, yeah.
Okay, because I think
go ahead.
I think Goodell's got to say or so. I don't know that he can do something, but someone's got to say something.
Yeah, Steven, thanks for bringing it up, man. Appreciate it. Get some sleep with that newborn. Happy New Year.
She's actually a hard sleeper like I am.
Oh, stop bragging, Steven. These guys in their sleep.
You're still trying to get your dog to sleep.
Thought I was done with this.
So, by the way, it can be. Do you know in Florida? I guess in Florida, it can't throwing a drink.
Sure, I think it's
like
anywhere. It's assault.
something?
Yeah, spitting is assault. Yeah.
Is it really?
Yeah. Any kind of projectile. Again, no one's suing David Tepper.
You don't think so?
They might threaten. He may settle. This is not going to be some lawsuit we find on an episode of Suits somewhere. This is going to be very quietly shoved to the side for an undisclosed amount of money.
It's David Tepper, right?
Yes, but the question I have is, outside of a civil lawsuit, which, come on, for real.
Well, I would try. He's a billionaire.
For sure.
Wouldn't you try?
Yes, of course I would try. 3 times over, yes. They'd be like, oh, the drink. That being said, the NFL can't allow this to happen without something being said.
The greatest, by the way, I hope I can describe this halfway decent. The greatest tweet I saw about this is I get billionaire owner throws a drink at me the next day, and it was a guy in a wheelchair and a body cast.
Yes.
Great.
Well, this is the story that Clay told us about Dennis Rodman, the photog who got kicked in the jewels the next day. He's got a broken shoulder, a torn labrum.
Guy did the same thing.
And got paid.
Did he get paid?
Yes.
Oh, that guy got paid?
Yes.
So, yeah, there's some funny stuff on social media about it. I do think overall this whole thing is a little humorous because it's okay, it's whatever. It's not that harmful to anybody. But Pro Football Talk will take this to the nth degree now. They're like, well, in the collective bargaining agreement, there's but I'm finding her kind of funny because this guy's a clown anyway. It sounds
Tepper, yeah.
And he's just seems like an idiot. But obviously this was classless. It's a bad look for an owner to do anything like this. And what you're basically asking is, what's the penalty going to be?
Yeah, is there any? Can they even put a penalty?
I think there will be a penalty because I think somebody said who was it that flipped the bird to the fan years ago?
Owner?
Yeah, it was an owner. McNair? I think it was McNair. Hopefully I'm not slandering anybody.
Bud Adams?
Bud Adams. That's who it was. He got fined $250,000.
That's $1 for every year he was alive back then.
Yes. What year is that? Did it say?
2009, maybe?
Okay, so 2009, $250,000 in 2009. I know it's only been 15 years, but that's a $500,000 fine.
I'm going to get you
now,
that exact
right?
number. Hold on.
So I would say the fine is hefty for Tepper. I don't know what else you can do. I mean, Goodell has to say something. He's already probably called and apologized to Shad Khan. He's probably already had to apologize to the league for embarrassing them. I mean, this is more embarrassing, egg on your face, classless than it is they're going to take a draft pick. And by the way, they don't even have draft picks to take. He gave them all to Chicago.
He gave them all away.
I mean, the worst freaking trade ever, this guy. This guy's a clown show.
They are so screwed. So screwed.
I guess the Jags, maybe they say this about the Jags organization over different periods, right? But this whole thing over these last however many months, from the Reich stuff to maybe it was Stroud, maybe it was Young, to the actual amount of money and draft capital they gave up, draft capital for that pick.
And DJ Moore,
and what Chicago ends up with, and to end up with the worst record. I mean, it's a really bad start. I guess not really a start. He's been there for a few years now. This is a bad moment in time for this guy, and this just adds to it. So I think it's a hefty fine, man. I think he's going to get like let's go with a $500,000 fine.
Had you been fined $250,000 in 2009 and then not paid it, cryogenically froze yourself and your bank account, no interest applied, and then woke up today, that bill would be $363,558.11.
Yeah, so I think
$500,000.
I think $500 million. I think he's going to have to pay a $500,000 fine because here's what they want to make a point: you cannot do this.
Yeah, but $500,000 doesn't bother him.
It doesn't matter, but it's still loud enough.
That's what it is to me.
Listen, it's like he just went like this, and that's $500,000 out of his pocket.
Really, I mean, it does make you think about me at least, because I watch a lot of road rage videos, especially on Reddit. But you think about this moment in time where you get caught up in your passion and your feelings,
and what it can cost you,
and sometimes it can really ruin everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely. What I really want to know is what were those fans saying to him?
Oh,
like they got under his skin so much. I mean, this guy's been living through a miserable year. You knew you were going to probably get your butt whooped. What did the Jacks fans
I don't understand how you can own an NFL team, draft a rookie quarterback, have a rookie head coach and a rookie OC, and then fire them before the year is over because it's not developing fast enough.
No, they made a mistake, and he didn't like to take
wild.
Blame. There's no accountability by him.
Really, none whatsoever. Like, he didn't have to sign off on the trade for the whole franchise?
Again, I don't know the inner workings of their organization, but if you believe what you read or hear, it's more that he was the one that wanted Young.
Yes.
More so than, more of that will come out anyway. But if that's the case, this is really his own doing. Now, is that true? Was it really the other way around that got them fired? Maybe. Who knows?
Well, so the new report prior to the whole throwing your drink at everybody report was that the coach he's hot to trot on right now is Ben Johnson, the Lions offensive coordinator. That's where the report about Ben Johnson seeking $15 million a year came from. Not because that's an actual number teams are throwing at him, because the Carolina Panthers are like, we'll pay you $15 million to coach. And in Ben Johnson's head, you're like, all right, it could be the worst 3 months of my life. I'm still taking $15 million.
Yeah, that's worth it. Everybody would sign up for that. I will say this is interesting. I think, wasn't there a case with Mark Davis in the Vegas where he was out like with the fans too and said something this year? I thought he said something. I thought there was a video of him. But
he was going at it with the fans. He's verbally attacking fans who are yelling at him. He's getting a shouting match.
There we go. So I think Goodell is going to say something about this stuff, though, because there's another incident that could have escalated. And then the thing I wonder about is, can you get these owners to a spot where they're not that close to the fans, right? So that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Well, you would think the vaunted and protected air of the owner's suite would be that, but I guess not.
Yeah, well, this is an older stadium in Jacksonville, so maybe you don't have the luxury of doing that. But my point is, like the Mark Davis one, he was where he sits, he's like right out there bantering back and forth with the fans.
Yeah, he got roasted online for having a sassy 2-word response in the shouting match, which was smarten up.
Is that what he said?
Which is something boomers like to scream at young people.
I bet Goodell, this behind closed doors becomes a big issue to be like, we can't have this. Because in a way, that's part of Goodell's job is to, he's
got to police the league,
owners, but he's policing the league, policing the owners. He's got to play to that. And that's a bad look. This thing went crazy. Like whoever, I forget who had the initial video. Within it's amazing how social media works so fast.
Yeah.
Within an hour after the game, it had I think I saw one that had 3 million views. Within an hour after the game, everybody had picked it up.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
Barstool to all the national guys to the Pro Football Talks to everybody, and it was just everywhere. And of course, when you have something like this crosses over into the TMZ world and everything else. It transcends just the sports.
Well, it's
world.
also really clickbaity these days to go after billionaires, and here's an easy way to get one. Yeah.
Well, he kind of brought it on himself.
Sure.
There. Let's get to South Beach Gary, who actually brings up just your name and the Miami Dolphins bring up another interesting thing for me because my kid will not stop talking about this. We don't get, or he doesn't get, and maybe he's right, why guys are still in games when you're down 30.
I'm sure South Beach can unintelligibly yell you an answer right now.
Happy New Year, South Beach Gary.
Happy New Year, guys. That was a rough one. Thank God it only counts as one loss. But Brent, I would answer, you can get hurt in any game, and it was a non-contact play. It wasn't like, he was injured on a contact play. So, non-contact injuries, they happen all the time. You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
listen,
whether it's the first play of the game, I don't buy that, you know, a guy's in the game. That I think that's a ridiculous answer because, as I said, it was a non-contact play. It could have happened in the first quarter.
So you're never taking him out, Gary? It doesn't matter the time of the game. It doesn't matter if you've got it in the bag. It doesn't matter if you've already clinched your spot.
Not if it was a non-contact injury. If it was a contact injury, I would say, yes, it was stupid. But it didn't happen on the contact play. So, but, you know, we were talking about the making changes, guys. And I recall the Jags fired their whole scouting system after the Urban debacle, right? And everybody. And Brent, you said, well, it was just the offensive interior line, but they also misestimated Calvin Ridley would have more of an impact on the team. That was another one. And another one that I think has got to anger fans is everybody and his brother knew the problem with it. Jacksonville needed to add on the offensive line and a pass rush. And he didn't bring in anybody. He didn't bring in
I was just saying that the other day.
Linebacker that Baltimore signed Leonard Floyd. They didn't bring in anybody to try to address that. You know, you see Chris Carroll all the time. He's bringing players during the season, and they just look at it as basically it's dereliction of duty. When you constantly have to be trying to add to your team throughout it's a whole year of adjustment, and I don't see.
Okay. Thanks, South Beach. Okay. All right, I got you. Thanks, South Beach.
His New Year's resolution was to get a worse phone, I think.
He got a worse phone for Christmas.
He did.
That's unbelievable. What was that? I needed extra time. Sorry to put you all through that, but I need the extra time to translate. I think he was basically on bulky for not bringing the. By the way,
how do you know?
They did bring in guys like Clowney and Calais. They had them
they
in
interviewed
the building,
them. Yeah.
And they didn't make a big enough offer or a good enough offer or whatever else or an offer. And so, yeah, listen, I mean, I think you're kind of saying the same thing we're saying in that regard.
Is he?
I think.
Sprint just called and they were like, Gary, it's time for an upgrade. Sprint a thing anymore?
Oh, my goodness. Steph just texted me, and she never listens.
Oh.
She said, South Beach Gary can't hear. Wow. Steph, I know you're new to the show, but that's an everyday thing.
There she goes. She's already got it. She's got 65% of the show right there. That's the whole trick, guys. We make most of it unintelligible, so you don't know if it's good or bad. You just wait in suspense to figure it out.
But back to the I don't know exactly what South Beach was trying to say.
Exactly.
Back to when I started with him. Again, like, this is I used to say this a lot when my kids were younger and be like, because they don't have a twist on anything. So they're just like matter of fact about, they almost have like they provide the logic sometimes, right?
Yeah.
You could be talking about politics or something else where everybody else is skewed by their beliefs and what they see and
they quickest route
brainwashed
from A to B. Yeah.
And they want to be right and all this stuff. Well, kids don't really have that. I mean, Ty's now like 18, but he cannot get over the fact that Trevor was in the game last week against Tampa at 30-0.
Yeah.
He can't, like, he said it again, yes, Bradley Chubb in the game. See, this is like and I try to be like, Ty, it's an NFL thing, man.
But, like,
It's
also,
an NFL thing.
how many of those guys are you supposed to take out?
Well, you only have 53, and there's just something, as a professional athlete, I think, more than maybe even the collegiate athlete or a high school athlete, you're like, your job is to go to work that day and finish the day.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter
sure.
how bad a day you're having.
Yeah.
Like, there's something to that. It's like this unwritten rule. I think that's in the NFL, and I think that's why coaches continue to do it. I guess it's like my only real reasoning behind it. I might look into it a little bit more, but they've changed a lot of things, as somebody said to me, with analytics and other things. Well, change this. Like, why do you have to do that? The bottom line is, if you look at Trevor's injury, it came 30-0 down in the third quarter. Now, in that moment, I don't think the coach is thinking, okay, we're totally out of it. I mean, they did come back from 27-0 down last year, right? It was this earlier third quarter. It wasn't like late third quarter or even the fourth.
Still a large number, but okay,
I get
fine.
it.
Game's still happening.
But you can't, like, provide that message, right? But I also think the outside view of 30-0, he's diving on a play on fourth down out of bounds. By the way, it's the only injury over the last month and a half that he hasn't been hit on, and it looks like it's the worst injury. Nobody even hit him.
But that's really where, in this specific scenario, I think the blame is a weird word, but the responsibility lays. It's not necessarily on the coaches to take Trev out at the beginning of the third quarter of a game that you're down by a lot. It's on Trevor to go, I'm not winning the game on this play.
Yeah.
I can reach for the first down without putting myself at risk.
And by the way, you could make the case that Trevor got the concussion in a similar fashion because he was kind of pissed off and ran on that 12-yard run and drew the contact, I think, of Roquan Smith instead of getting down.
But this is it, right? You're not going to see a maturity from Trevor Lawrence by him going out to the beach bars and getting into fights, but you may see it in times like this where he tries to do too much and put it all on his shoulders at the wrong time. Yeah.
So I know, is that the coach's fault? Like, I thought McDaniel was pretty good on it. He's like, listen, I get it from the outside looking in while we're down big, but we teach guys to finish. Like, this is their job. Like,
I'm with them.
Basically what he said. So I understand it until you lose somebody. And it's what the Ravens now have in their hands. Do the Ravens play Lamar Jackson and their starters, or do they sit them knowing that they actually wouldn't have played a football game for some 20 days by the time they play the most important football game of the year?
So dangerous.
Very tough because there's no win here. If you are rusty in that playoff game and lose, well, it's because you didn't play anybody for 3 weeks.
Yeah.
If you got a guy hurt,
it's because you played too many. Yeah.
What I would do in this situation if I'm the Ravens is I think I would play my guys for a quarter because that means they attack the game with the same effort.
They prepared all week.
Preparation. They go get a sweat in. They go get some action in. And my buddy brought this up. I wasn't even thinking about this. Will they play Lamar Jackson because the MVP might be on the line?
I don't think that makes them play somebody.
But, I mean,
it might make
guys.
It might make Lamar go, I'm playing no matter what. I don't know that John Harbaugh is like, well, Lamar, you're up for the MVP this year.
I know, but you have to be very aware of players' feelings on that.
Sure. Especially a guy like Lamar, who you just brought back in after a contentious offseason, and you go, hey, man, we're Lamarville. You're the mayor. That being said, I think one quarter isn't enough for me if I'm head coach. Maybe I'm going for the half, but I do like your theory, which is don't sit him for the whole game. It's too much rust. Yeah.
And I would say a half to start, but I mean, I could also see a first quarter, get him out of there, especially if you can get the lead.
Now, if you're up 21-0 at the end of the first, then, adios, everybody.
It's a very interesting game. Jaguars could actually lose to Tennessee, and they'll know their situation by if the Steelers lose, all they'll need is the Raiders to win and beat Denver. So it's actually a fascinating game for the Jaguars, and that's a Saturday game.
It does feel like the Raiders are playing for something with Antonio Pierce.
Absolutely. They're just not very good.
But they play hard for him. But they do play hard for him.
So you're saying they should play Lamar Jackson?
Yeah. And if I'm Lamar, I'm playing. Especially after all the naysayers last year, after everyone who wasn't interested in me, wouldn't guarantee my money, wouldn't trade 2 firsts for me. You want to trade 2 firsts for Bryce Young? Go ahead and do so. I'm going to sit here and win an MVP on my way to the Super Bowl.
Do you think he's already won the MVP?
Yes.
Really?
Only because Purdy had the 4-interception day.
What about McCaffrey?
And because Dak had a slide with the Cowboys over the last couple of weeks. The win against the Lions wasn't necessarily convincing. I don't think McCaffrey ever had a shot.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Now, if McCaffrey had rushed for like 2,000 yards and did all the receiving stuff and the touchdown stuff, I'd go, now we're cooking here. But a guy having the most amazing running back season in today's NFL, I don't think it wins the MVP.
Yeah, you're probably right. And by the way, at the time that now Lamar is doing it is the perfect time.
Well, I asked myself yesterday, I was like, are the Ravens peaking too early? Because they've been rolling now for a few weeks. And you got to now keep this momentum for another 4 or 5, 6 weeks if you count the break before the Super Bowl. It's a long time to sustain it. So are they peaking at the wrong time, or is this a case of new offensive coordinator to start the season, new offensive players to start the season, and now these boys are cooking the way they should have been cooking?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question. I always ask that.
I think they're cooking. I don't think they're peaking. I think they're cooking.
Well, it's hard to get better than the way they're playing the last few weeks.
But they're not doing it the same way every week, which is why I think they're cooking. It's like they're not relying on a guy who's having a great 3-week run. Sure, Lamar looked untouchable and often does in Ravens wins. But there are different supporting actors in those wins.
Yeah. I think they're really good.
They're really good.
And here's the deal. I think the Cowboys have some warts. The Eagles obviously have some warts.
Clearly, yeah. They're descending.
And San Francisco's really good.
Very good.
But if Lamar plays like this, he's 10 times better than Purdy.
Well, he showed it when they played each other.
But he already is. Like, even in their system, and Purdy's not the player.
Well, Purdy was never going to be Lamar. Yeah.
He didn't need to be. He was fine. That's not a knock on him.
But he's the 7th-round quarterback. Yeah.
And Lamar's an MVP.
Yes.
Right? It's been an incredible year. It's been an incredible month for Lamar. But incredible year, but really an incredible month. I'm really impressed with what he's been able to do. I'm impressed with their team. How about this? I think there's a real shot. And obviously there is a real shot because they're the number 1 seed and maybe the best team in the NFL right now. John Harbaugh could win a Super Bowl, and his brother Jim could win a national championship.
Oh, wow. That probably is the first time that's ever happened.
I would think. I don't even know how it could happen. Like, I don't even know if
old
there's
Vince and Hector Lombardi, his long-lost half-brother no one knew about.
Yeah, I don't know if there's another chance of that happening. But that'd be really wild.
Yeah. That's crazy.
Michigan's playing here in just a little bit.
And then, of course, Jim Harbaugh now has a new agent, an NFL agent.
Yeah, it's Tom Brady's agent.
Yeah.
Ironically enough. I would think he goes to the NFL this time.
Yeah.
Because the college game's a mess.
Well, New Jersey is such a nice place to live, too. Like, come on, Jim.
He's not going there. Maybe he's going to Carolina.
Maybe. That would be really moronic.
That would
on
be.
Jim Harbaugh's side.
Well,
like,
in both, because
you want to talk about
both hard to work
Tepper
with.
and Harbaugh working with each other would be a night. I would watch that 30 for 30 for 365.
I remember when the Jags were looking at coaches one of the cycles. Obviously, they've looked at a lot. And Harbaugh's name came up, and I was told by somebody that it's too hard to work with. Like, that's the book on him.
Well, that's why it works.
Not that he's
college,
a bad coach.
Right?
He's just too hard to work with. And so what somebody told, I don't know how true this was, but somebody told me at the time, he had a good record going at San Francisco.
Yeah, definitely.
But the minute they wait for a guy like that to fail, because the minute he fails, you're out. Because it's like,
too hard.
It's too hard.
Yeah, it's not worth it
it's
anymore.
It's not worth it. Like, Belichick's probably a pain in the butt. But as long as they were winning, didn't matter. And he might not even be that much of a pain in the butt, but from the outside looking in, that's a good example of one. But he kept winning. So you can put up with it if you're winning.
What was it post Harbaugh that they brought in Singletary? Or do I have that in reverse?
Oh, that Tom Sula?
I have to go back and look.
I don't know.
Singletary might be
a few too.
He might be one of my favorite head coaches that weren't a head coach of my team in a long time. He was a real treat to watch.
I didn't like him coaching because he was such a good football player. Mm-hmm. And so it felt like it marred, like,
he
wasn't a good coach.
He seemed psychotic at all times.
Yeah.
It's great.
It's great. Which game do we have first? Alabama, Michigan. There we go.
Nice.
But by the way, we did not talk about this, but the Detroit-Dallas game, we'll do that tomorrow.
Okay.
That whole deal. Which I don't even know if they've ironed out exactly what is going on with that deal.
It doesn't, but I got to imagine there's something coming down from the NFL about that coaching reffing crew here this week.
Yeah, there's some word that they'll be like disbarred from the playoffs.
Okay, cool.
Guess what everybody was talking about this weekend, Aaron?
They were talking about a bad call. You're right. Screw the robot umps. Yeah.
By the way, how do you check in as an ineligible or an eligible receiver to a robot ump?
You got to punch it into your keypad. You have the audience do it. Phone a friend.
All right, boys. Thanks for coming in today.
That's it?
That's it. Quick show.
Really?
Yeah, we're going to go to the national championship games.
Oh, the people were clamoring. Okay.
Of course they were. We get more tomorrow.
All right.
We'll be back at it, Brent Friends, 3 p.m. tomorrow. Happy New Year to everybody. Enjoy the football games. You can listen right here on ESPN 690.
Listening to the College Football Playoff Semifinal at the Rose Bowl game, presented by Prudential on ESPN Radio and the ESPN app.
With Trevor Maddich, I'm Kevin Winter. The College Football Playoff semifinals are finally here. It is New Year's Day. And for as long as I've been alive, and way longer than that, Trevor Maddich, New Year's Day at 5 o'clock Eastern Time, 2 o'clock Pacific, meant one thing. The Rose Bowl game. Pasadena, California. For the fourth time, it'll play host to the semifinals of the College Football Playoff. Michigan and Alabama. Nick Saban's been here before in the playoff semis. and in the Rose Bowl. Won a national championship there short time ago. Quinn Kestis had an opportunity to speak with the Alabama head coach.
Coach, you mentioned the word emotional discipline that it takes to win a game of this magnitude. What do you mean by that?
I think you got to be able to execute and do your job. Everybody's going to have great energy and intensity and enthusiasm and relentless competitive spirit to go out there and be the best that they can be, but you also got to be able to stay focused and execute and be able to do your job, which I think is one of the most important things when you're playing games like this.
How do you effectively control that?
I don't know. I don't know for sure how you do it. I think our guys are in the right place, but we'll see when we start playing.
Thank you, Coach.
There's Quinn Kestis with the Alabama head coach, Nick Saban. He mentions energy. I hope his team has more than he does.
Well, I hope his team is as calm as he is.
Well, that too.
You
can look at it two ways.
One of the great advantages that Coach Saban has is that he's been here before a lot, right? National championship games, BCS national championship games, college football playoff semifinals, and national championship games. And he understands that there's a tendency for young players especially, towards getting so amped up that they kind of lose their minds a little bit and they lose the focus on the details of the things they need to do. And so Coach Saban, it sounds to me that he's just showing his team that you need to be calm. We'll get amped up before kickoff, but right now, don't peak too soon and don't get too crazy. It's another football game.
Quinn Kestis, Joe Tessitore, Dusty Dvorak have the call of Game 1 of the college football playoff national semifinals, Alabama and Michigan. You and I talked, Trevor, about a week ago, and you said to me, this was Nick Saban's